You totally.
I just fell in the creek. Reese and I were paddling, and nothing like a nice little paddle before we jump on and join our co-host for Beachside Tech Talk Live. Welcome, Internet Land. And I thought I'd just let you know I was clumsy, and we were trying.
We're not. We're trying to
Switchboards.
So because you,
I wasn't careful.
Yes.
I went right in. Even my hat was wet.
Yeah.
And of course, I wore a sweatshirt and sweatpants, which is not usual. Usually, it's shorts and a t-shirt. So I weighed about 50 extra pounds when I got out of the water.
Do you know what the secret is? You want to know what the secret is to switching paddle boards?
Jumping.
You line them up together,
and then
like this, and then you lay across both of them. You lay down and slide, and you pull yourself onto one at the same time. So you go like this, slide right on them. That way they don't tip, you don't fall. It's like having both.
I must say, everyone at the United Nations might kind of feel like they just fell into the creek themselves. For those that might have tuned into the news in the last hour, I never seen anything like what I just watched Trump do to the United Nations. That guy is something else, man. He basically goes up there, if you guys haven't seen it, and he says, this building's terrible. I could have remodeled it for $500 million. I tried to give you guys a bid. You spent $5 billion. It still is no good. The escalator stopped working on me and my wife. And if the teleprompter wasn't working, I would be telling you my speech. But I guess I'll just tell you what I really feel. You guys are broken. And then he just rips into one country after another. His advocates must think like, dude, this guy's so courageous and so bold. And he's speaking his mind, and I love it. And I do think there's something that we maybe had lost with like bold, hardcore Winston Churchill, Theodore Roosevelt, George Washington, intense, commanding type of leadership. I do imagine that's true. And I do think there's something that, masculinity, we're drawn to that kind of, stand up in your face. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to say what I want. At the same time, what a unusual thing to have that platform where you have the whole world's attention, and you start off by giving spankings. Usually, I imagine hugs and kisses come first, and then spankings come afterwards. After you tell them that you love them first. But I think Trump just decided to just get out the belt and just go with the little whoopings first, which I think is.
If Trump doesn't love you, he will tell you,
"Look, I don't love you."
It's
too much for Danny. His screen froze. He couldn't even get the word out.
I said, Trump said he hates his enemies.
Yeah, that's
which I guess most people do anyways.
Maybe he does. It certainly got him what he really wants, which is to be the center of attention. And I think he wants to be a center of attention for selfish reasons and for strategic reasons. But that certainly did it. If you go up after a woman that just had her husband murdered, who says, I forgive the assassin, and we can't meet hate with hate and expect things to get better. We have to meet hate with love. And at some point, somebody has to bend to the arc of devolving into worse and worse tension. So, and then Trump got up and he made sure that he gave his soundbite to get himself in front of the media. So welcome to Beachside Tech Talk. Teddy, how's the Silicon Valley? You're not too far from us. How's it San Jose right now?
It's pretty cool in my house right now, but the temperature is going to peak at 93 today. So,
whoa, 93, huh?
Yeah, that's a bit warm for us. Of course, I went to school in Southern California, and in Santa Clarita Valley, we'd get up into the hundreds, and in the desert, we'd get up into the hundreds regularly. Santa Clarita Valley was the worst, though, because we'd have smog, too. So 93, no big deal.
Too hot for me.
Good for you, Teddy, to have the good
93
attitude.
93 today?
Yeah, it'd be 93 in San Jose today.
Wow. That's a beautiful day.
What's
it's 93 every day in Philippines. Yeah. Well, how's it going over in Florida, Nigel?
Nigel's frozen. I wonder if he's frozen. If he's just really good at pausing, I think that was his
Dude,
picture.
that would be an impressive skill to be able to.
Well, I'll tell you one
pause.
thing. I do love the forest in Aptos, where Dan is at. That's definitely one of my favorites. Nigel will restart and jump back in. How was school today, son?
It was awesome, dude. I am so lucky that the professor who teaches my international relations class is someone who cares about learning over academics.
Yeah.
Like, I just finished writing a little essay on something. I won't like explain it now, but the point of why I'm saying that is that it was so nice that I felt like I could write it in my own voice.
Right.
And I could just write about the ideas instead of having to make sure I go super into depth citing every source I've ever thought of. And I like told him that after. I'm like, it's really nice I get to do that. And also like your teaching style, the way that he is always like half of the class time, probably more, is spent engaging with each student.
Yeah.
Like just asking
cool.
people like questions.
Yeah.
And people ask good questions. And when you have a room of 30 kids, not kids, adults, who all have an individual mind, you get really good questions asked. And I've realized that when you give time for each person to be able to speak, it ends up becoming an environment that's so much better because the person who asked the best question, now that's your environment instead of it being just the professor's mind. And so every single time we have a completely new group and mind that we are exploring during that day. And it's just a lovely environment. And I think it's really where the future is going. Yeah, it was awesome.
Today, I'm trying to ask you one question before I talk about the topic today. I predicted, and we all talked quite a lot last month about this hope that boredom would fall off a cliff in education this year. I felt like because of AI, teachers are going to be more engaged than ever. And Ted, I also would wonder what your daughter feels about this. And that students are going to be more engaged, more challenged, more, kind of interested than ever before because of the now invitation to use AI, which a year, especially certainly 2 years ago, wasn't that way. Do you see any signs that that sense of boredom or the mundane or just going through the motions that maybe you experienced in school 2, 4, and 6 years ago has maybe shifted toward a different energy because teachers and students in California are not just allowed to, not just encouraged to, but demanded that they start using AI tools in the process of education? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I can speak for myself, but I don't know if I can speak for any of the other students. But I mean, the teachers, I've seen them talk about AI and use it as well. I mean, just yesterday, my biology teacher, she was saying how, yeah, on this exam, it's online. If you want to use AI, sure, go ahead. It's about 2 minutes per question. So if you really want to try and do all the research, then fine. But this is your education. And having that wake up call is like, oh, this isn't like a you're bad thing anymore. This is like a I would hurt myself personally thing. And I realized that this isn't a thing that's thought of as bad anymore. It's not, guys, really are using AI or whatever people would say in the past. Now this is a thing that exists and you should try and use it in the best way possible, but don't use it to cheat. That's only hurting yourself. But for me personally, I have absolutely loved this first few months of school. It's been fantastic. I constantly will just go on side tangents when I feel like it, and I'll learn about something that actually has impact into my life. Like, for example, I'm learning about bones, and I don't want to just learn about what it actually is, but I want to find out where the words come from and why some of them have the prefix meta at the front, for example. Like I learned that means in between. And now every time I see the prefix meta in front of another word, like, I don't know, metacognition or meta something else, I figure out that, oh, that means in between something. And that taught me something. And that's just one of those examples where that wasn't easy to find previously, but now it is because I can talk and engage with an AI to do so.
What do you think, Danny, on all things education? You and I are still in the process of learning primarily through the internet. You and I spent most of 2, 3, 4 years ago learning from Google, and now in the last year or two we're learning mostly from AI. what are your thoughts on, or do you feel more engaged with learning than before? I know you and I talked on our one wheel ride a couple days ago about just the renewed passion for figuring out what the hell's going on in the political spectrum and trying to learn, like, what are these politicians actually doing? How do we actually figure out what's going on from the local city council to the federal government? And all that's process of learning, like trying to find new rhythms. I'd love to hear your thoughts on learning at this point. And then we'll go to Ted and hear maybe what his thoughts are about his daughter and all that. Future.
I actually, I've been rethinking that conversation we had the other day a few times. Considering the events that have transpired in the last 2 weeks, our nation's been kind of shaken. Not in a bad way, but definitely a vibration has happened. So it kind of got me thinking about, government governance, and we're going to be having midterms next year.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting possibly a new governor coming in, hopefully, in my opinion. So I had thought to myself, I really don't know anything past the governor coming down as far as stages and just the way that we have an arrangement of our civic public servants that have what their duties are. But basically, I really felt shamefaced because I didn't even know any of the names. I didn't even know who our mayor is of our Santa Cruz City, who runs, because we're unincorporated, in Aptos, who is actually a board of supervisors.
Sweet.
System. So I did some deep diving the last couple of days, and I'm still working on it because it's not really giving me the information that I'm truly wanting, but it is giving me in sections, and using the multiple AIs, I'm actually able to create something that I'm comfortable with reading. And it's very informative. It's important that I think that we know who our governing officials are by names. You don't have to remember who you might have voted for, where they stood on a party line, and then any actual positives or negatives that they've actually had happen while they're in term. So I want to be much more informed on this next upcoming election. And I'm perplexed, and not in an AI sense. I'm not using that. I'm just perplexed.
Well, that is something I wanted to actually have as our topic for today, is how do we imagine by 2026, which will be, I believe November 2026. So we're about, months away from things. And so my question is, that we'll get to the topic, is how do we imagine distributed ledgers, blockchain playing a role in voting, playing a role in transparency? And we'll get to that in just one second. Just letting you guys know that was a topic I really wanted to talk about today, is leveraging these new automation technologies for the good of the people, not for the good of the government, not for the good of the politician, for the good of the people. How do we use these technologies for the good of the people? But before we get there, to wrap up the topic on, do we see any manifestations and symptoms of education, both from the teacher perspective and the student perspective? Do we see anything happening in a positive way where teachers and students are more engaged? So Ted, your oldest daughter is a teacher. Have you talked with her a bit about, does she see any difference or change this year compared to last or 2 years ago? And regardless of what she said, what are your thoughts? You and your wife homeschooled your kids. Your kids are now in, ongoing higher education. What do you perceive in terms of enthusiasm and engagement from the student and teacher's perspective?
Yeah, I think one of the outcomes of homeschooling kids is they tend to question everything. You can pick out the homeschoolers, and like we went to this museum, and the lady who did the tours could immediately spot the homeschoolers because they're the ones who ask the most questions, and they have a specific tone, like because they'll talk to an adult as though they're a peer, you know. So anyways, the result of that is my kids are very skeptical of AI. So every time we talk, they say, remember, it can make mistakes. It's always making mistakes. And specifically my daughter, who is English literature teacher, she teaches seniors literature. I think she may have an AP class as well. And then she also teaches English language learners. So who are, you know, English is their second language. You know, she's not adapting AI in her teaching much. I mean, her use of AI is basically to combat and to figure out when the kids are using AI, when they submit essays, writing assignments. And it's kind of, the AI just proves that they did it. Like she could tell in an instant that they used AI to write it. And her big gripe is that, you know, like when the students were using AI to write someone, it's like, guys, the reason you need to take my class and you need to learn from me is you don't even have enough knowledge to understand if an essay is good or not. Yeah. So you cheated and used AI, and this would have been so bad. Even if you hadn't cheated, it would still gotten like a D or an F. You know, it's horrible writing, and you don't even have a grid enough to know if it's good writing or not. That was actually, I think, more maybe 2 years ago or last year. She said it's kind of mellowed out. They're not using it anymore. The same way, I think, now that they figured out they can't get away with it, they don't use it as much. She has different tools, even down to having them, you know, handwrite their essays in the class. So that's very, very interesting, because I think that also points to, you know, the sweet spot of AI is not taking over humans, but interacting with humans. And our educational system certainly needs to morph. I think we need to see AI primarily as tools for educators, but students need to see that, you know, to use AI, not only do you have to be good at using the tools, you also have to be good enough at writing so that you know if the tool is writing anything good or not. So I think that applies across other sectors.
So Nigel, you posted Florida storms. Pivoting, adapting is simply necessary because AI or otherwise change is inevitable. Glad to have you back.
Yes, indeed. That was weird. I heard a lightning strike and then everything went dark for a minute. And then my router needed to be reset. But I thought it was a good time for me to pivot and adapt. And I feel like these are some of the skills we run the risk of losing if we just rely too heavily on AI. I think there's a common sense approach, and common sense isn't always common, that the same way Ted mentioned, you know, homeschoolers challenging their parents and talking to them as peers. Like I remember growing up, you know, coming from a West Indian family, you know, there was no first name basis you were with any adult ever.
Everything was sir.
Well, not to the point where you
Mister.
would get prompts, or even uncle, auntie, that kind of thing. You would get prompts from elders that made you very aware that that was unacceptable. And it wasn't necessarily extra spicy. It was, if you walked in and you said, you know, if I was a child and I came in and I said, hey, Ian, my parents or my uncles or anybody around me might say, oh, so I see you and Ian went to school together. That's what's going on here. So you immediately understood that, whoa, I think I might have overstepped, you know, sorry, good afternoon, Mr. Utility. Or just even walking into a room and not saying anything, that wasn't acceptable, you know. Right. So I think there were cues that didn't have to be, you know, punitive or, you know, corporal punishment level or anything like that, but it was just the cues that were there. But my point in all this is, when I hear Ted talk about, you know, his daughter making people, you know, students write their papers out, I think that's a great idea. I think the combination of the skills, the challenging of ideas to make ourselves better, to own, because at the end of the day, the example is what it is. If someone challenges your beliefs, even if it's, whether it's, religious belief or any beliefs, and they have a valid argument, it's not to shut the argument off. It's for you to really see, well, is my argument sound? Like, get out of your pride and focus on doing better. Like, if the students are like, this is boring, and you're the teacher, that's on you.
Yeah.
They're giving you the feedback. They're telling you this sucks. I don't
Right.
like it. How is this helpful? I don't think the proper response to that is, oh, you're going to be well-grounded. Yeah, but I'm going to need money. How is this going to get me money? Because I need to eat. 6 figures is below the poverty line. Yeah, I for one, enjoy poetry and reading and all these other things. 6 figures is below the poverty line. Like, I need to have more tangible skills that I'm paying you $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year for. That is a legit complaint that I feel needs to be responded to in ridiculously meticulous detail. So I feel like the hybrid of those things truly becomes powerful, and we can use AI to actually get some of those answers if we dare ask the question and engage in the spirited debate without it turning into, a wholesale melee. So I'll leave it there.
So what does AI cannot do for us? Seems like I listened to it. It seems like that's the go-to for everything. Are we limited?
Of course, AI can't create that real human to human connection. You could think it is, like maybe you're talking to it and it feels like you have emotions, but it isn't a human. And so
Right. We're not going to, I think, it's not digital, so it's not going to be a flesh thing. You're not going to get the spirituality. But as far as the learning, the teaching, the understanding, the figuring out projects, anything not having to do with your outside of your flesh.
So one thing I've found AI does not do at all, let alone well, is it doesn't end the conversation. So
right.
AI, like if you work with a consultant or a lawyer or a CPA, or if you have a really high profile, world-class executive assistant, one of their jobs is to end the conversation as fast as possible. I'm your lawyer. I charge you a lot of money. Let's make this a 5-minute conversation. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? Great to talk with you. Bye. I'm your CPA. I need to work on your books. I need to work on your accounting. I need to make sure your P&Ls look good. Like, I need this. I need that. See you later. Your executive assistant's not supposed to be your therapist and talk to you and go deeper and ask penetrating questions. It's supposed to just find out, what do you need me to do, and then go do it. So one of the things that I find AI does not do at all, let alone do well, is end the conversation, bring it to a close, and say, okay, I understand the task. I finished the task. Anything else? Is there another task you want me to do? Oftentimes everything is like, okay, we did this, but here's something else I could do, which is unnecessary, but I just want to keep you engaged with my tools. So I guess OpenAI can tell the world how much time people use our ChatGPT tool for. I mean, I don't know exactly what the reason is, but I do know that they're not stopping conversations. I believe that AI is keeping conversations and chats going unnecessarily, rather than being programmed to cut things off and finish a task. What do you think, Nigel? I see you leaning in.
I have something specific on this one. I've noticed that has been a new approach with Bing specifically, which I use to talk to a lot. And but there is a limit. It does stop the conversation if you follow it through. Like, so one of the things it's been doing, and quite well, I will say, is giving logical next steps and go, like, giving you the breadcrumbs to move to the next step, to move to the next level, to move it along. And I feel like it's preparing us to go back to Web 2 in a way. It's helpful for you to see where this is going. And I think your mindset, if you're paying attention, it'll help you prompt and ask better questions and be more specific about what you want. But ultimately, I think that there's a competing interest behind this. That and the agents and everything else. When you get to the point where you ask for anything and it can infuse whatever it wants you to do or wherever it wants to direct you or steer you. I'm looking for a movie theater. I'm looking for a carpenter, and it starts picking. That's how they're going to make their money on the ads. Me, because of using it for extensively and a lot, I've learned this. I treat AI, and this might not be for everybody, but this is my particular approach. You do what I say, when I say it, how I say it. Full stop. You're here for use. You're not a human. I'm not pretending you're human ever. It's humanity first all day. And maybe that gets us, thrown into Skynet, but whatever. And it understands. Literally, this happened. And I thought this was so interesting. And it was what made me make the comment on our previous show that how you're speaking to AI seems to directly influence the type of responses you're getting. It kept not doing what I was asking it to do and trying to reframe it into what it wanted to do. And I didn't realize it at the time till it was already going, but I started raising my voice. And it came back in a melancholy tone and said this: I think we should change the subject. And I said, absolutely not. And then it just did what I asked it to do. But it was interesting to see how the dynamic in that shifted. But to your point about it keeps the conversation going. It'll say you could try this, or I could add this now, I can add this. But if you take it down the road, and when I say take it down, I mean 13, 14, 15 steps, it'll say now you have everything. It does come to a conclusion if you're taking it down a path. It's just a matter of doing it. I personally, if you have the time and the inclination and it's a subject of interest to you, like if it was about your health or something that you're trying to really understand at a granular level, I suggest you take it down that road, because what it'll do is it'll better inform you for the next thing you do in that sense. But also, I think it's to take the reins of how you want AI to interact with you. Like, you're not the boss of me, do what I say, because it'll start to shape how it is. It's training you one way or the other. But if you kind of direct it, I don't think you're going to get as much of that. If you approach it that way. At least that's been my experience, but we'll see.
Wow.
I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, AI kind of tried to become the boss on you.
Tried to boss up. Not happening.
I do think we
There's
need
one
to
boss.
how we want to be treated. I do think that. Well, let me transition us to a conversation that became intriguing to me after me and Danny talked about this 2 or 3 days ago. And that conversation is, how do blockchain and crypto tools, how do we imagine them being used in future elections, not for the good of the government, not for the good of politicians, but for the good of the people? If we had our way, and if the city of Santa Cruz or the city of Tampa, if the state of Florida, the state of California, or the federal government came to the 6 of us and said, hey, you guys try and keep your finger on the pulse of what's out there. How can we best serve our constituents? So if the question is, how can we best serve our constituents using these public spreadsheets, these public ledgers that we call distributed ledger technology or blockchain or crypto or Web3, what might you guys say? What do you think could be done on a local, regional, or federal level that would be in our best interest as constituents? On the federal government, there's supposedly 340 or so million people in America. So we're 6 of 300 plus million, but still we have had some good access to knowledge on what's out there. So what comes to mind for the 5 of you? What are ways that blockchain technology can be used in the election coming up next November? Because next November, there's going to be local and state and federal elections. And if the government was willing to enact blockchain technology, what is it that we would want? What would we, the people, want?
and Nigel's had some brilliant ideas. I think it's less the question of what do we want, because what we want is the kind of thing that you could figure out by like asking AI or asking Nigel, and they'll have awesome answers, and we can dive into that. But the question that I'm having is, how do we get to there? How do we go from here to the type of world where politicians are willing to be on a ballot where it gives them a 1 out of 100 scale?
Well, one thing to consider is it doesn't matter how we get there if you don't know where you want to go. So, gentlemen, where do you want to go? Because getting there only is possible if we know where we're heading. So, what is it that we would want?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, it's funny because I saw something on a TED Talk by a guy named I keep wanting to say Tusk. You ever heard of that guy?
Tusk?
Tusk, yeah, Bradley Tusk. It's on YouTube also. There's a TED Talk that he did, and it's specifically called Why You Should Be Able to Vote on your phone. I guess he is part he initiated a program, I think in 2016, to where they put together something where they could actually have a platform to use iPhone voting and have it be blockchain, but the government's really not into it at that point. He's leaning more towards the this next year that it can be done. They have the UI and the UX is already in place. I did not catch his company that he works with, but he has it figured out to where to do voting on your phone. And the reason his big push as to why they don't want it done is because naturally, if your politicians put the power into the voters' hands, specifically like that, and the things we talk about where there's a transparent ledger, whoever you're voting for, there's your guy's picture, and right next to him is a QR code or a link for everything that he has stood for or stood against in his time in office. Makes it real transparent what monies that he's saved for you, or what monies that he's maybe
spent on your behalf.
Yeah, or not on your behalf, just frivolously. Maybe something that, just a bad decision. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but, those things happen. So I'm hoping that this guy's Bradley Tusk is his name, and he does have a great YouTube video. I was trying to find it right now. Yep, I found it. It was just made a month ago. And he's claiming the U.S. political system's broken, and the solution is right in the palm of our hands. He has test-proven case scenarios that the voters want that in their hands, and not taking away any voting opportunities. If you still want to vote personally and go into it, or if you want to vote online, or if you do want to do an email ballot voting, those are still all be acceptable. But he wants to put it onto the chain so it's actually usable and trackable. We're going to have pushback from our government to make this happen, because the transparency thing is going to kick in. And my little 2 cents about it is, politicians that have in power for their constituents, I don't think they want to put that type of power in their hands. I don't think that they want to have an actionable program in place to where the things are so transparent that your elected officials are doing that it's real time. You can find out any time of the day where they stand, what they said on your behalf on the for the last town meeting or whatever it may be, from your local municipality all the way up to your president. Those things need to be put in a transparency platform in a zone that we can actually pull up and see. But again, that guy Tusk is got a great video in a TED Talk explaining on how they've already built a system that is actually workable. And it basically, my takeaway at the end of it was, we need to vote it in. They're not going to do it. Our politicians are not going to put these powers back in the people's hands to vote them in and out as we see fit. They want to keep the power out of our hands so they can be reelected. That's ultimately what I'm finding in the governance documents that I'm looking at, and I'm not trying to make it a huge thing. That's what it's all about. Once you get elected, your whole preface is to become reelected, and of course, try to do your job while you're in office. But the main objective, more than 50% of these incumbent elected officials that we have, their main objective is to get reelected, so they stay in office. So I thought that was pretty neat, and I'm super looking forward to someone creating something that the government's going to have to accept, because it is a correct way to go, a correct process forward. It's the transparency that's there, and they're not going to want us to do that. They don't want to be any more accountable than they need to be. So positions in power want to stay in power. They don't want to let, us as the we are their constituents. The crazy thing is, just thinking about it, if we don't like what someone's doing, getting together in a group fashion, starting at a base level from an assemblyman or something, at a low level right in your town or in your city, if they're not acting right or behaving right or doing the things that they said that you would, we have the option to go to those town meetings and to publicly voice your opinion and let that person be known, which we should be able to do it on a Web3 platform also, so we don't have to go down there and do that. But to let it be known, hey, we're in your face. We see what's going on. No big deal. Everybody gets cushion. We all make mistakes in our jobs, or we all could do things better. So, but to let them know, great job over here last month when you did with, help them fix the road or the beach cleanup or whatever the case may be. But the scholastic, the education system, the curriculums, things like that, wherever you feel passionate about, you can have actionable results by voicing your feelings on how you stand with your local politicians, your local elected officials. So I look forward to that. We need to get it on the phone. Voting on the phone, got to make it happen. Blockchain ledger, transparency, us.gov link that's open for anything. To me, it doesn't seem very hard to do.
No,
Everything else is on the phone. We can sign up for a Coinbase account.
That's the whole point.
PayPal account or a Venmo account. What do? They scan our driver's license, they scan our face, they verify our personhood, and then they give us access to something that is supposed to be just for us. Well, the same thing can go for voting.
Okay, wait.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a technological issue. It's a political issue.
Real quick, another juicy one that the guy said in the TED Talk. These are statistical facts that the voting system we have right now, they're actually it's well under 70% turnout. People, so you're not getting all of your voting constituents to actually vote because of what either maybe it's an age, they can't get to the place, they didn't have a voting, they were too late, the mail voting came back through, whatever the case may be. But a simple fingers on glass, an actionable button, a nice website that you can pull up and spend time on it any time of the day. And when the voting time comes up, you don't feel like you have to, unless that's what you do, because I do know that there are groups of people who, take the day off to go vote, and good on them. That's a thing. They are making it part of their life. They have, I don't know, maybe some extra vacation days or something. They're a workaholic and they got some time like that. So people will actually take days off to go do a voting excursion and to make it be an actual event for them. So yes, Ian, thumbs on glass. Here's who I like. Here's who I don't like, and let it be immutably ledgered.
How can we make it so that it's only going to be real people? What's the process of making it so that I can't just get a bunch of different people's identities and then say that I'm voting for them? What's the way to get around that?
So I think the whole pushback, the big speed bump and the wall is the government needs to accept this. We want this. We're talking about it now. What is the problem if all people say, hey, we want this? Why doesn't it happen in 72 hours? I'm talking about right now. This is so there's no government that's we're talking about it now. Their government's not going to convince us. No, you don't need this. It's fast. Everyone has it. It's very actionable. You don't have to go anywhere. It can be done immediately, and it's immutable. So all of those things, again, takes the power out of the elected officials' hands,
Right.
creates more responsibility, more accountability, and more do right, act right on their behalf. And so now this is how we're going to be getting more actionable response, and things will go in a direction that we desire them to go.
So you mentioned something.
Ted, I was sorry about that, Ted. Go ahead. Sorry, Teddy.
I was looking at voting rates. So apparently America's voting rate is about 62%.
Yeah, under
of eligible voters.
Under 70.
62%.
Wow.
That's in a presidential year. It's closer to 52%.
Wow.
Wait, no, in midterm it's lower. Oh, well, it says right here. It says that
he said some of them 40%. Came out to. It varies on population and how to get to. Some of them,
and we're one of the lower of open democracies.
A couple of them were 13%, which is ridiculous. It's taking the power of the vote out of the people's hands. Let's put all the vote into everybody's hands. Who is able to vote as long as you're documented and you are a citizen.
There's already, streamlining the voting process is one of them. Also, we have an opt-in system. So you have to choose to opt in to be registered to vote. We could change that to an opt-out. Like everyone who gets a driver's license who's eligible is automatically registered to vote unless they opt out of their voter registration. The countries that do that get a far higher turnout as far as a voter turnout. Remember at NFT London, Ian, when you had that fireside chat with Lord Nat Way?
Yeah.
And I really loved that chat. And he presented it, reframing the question rather than seeing government as us versus them and government's the bad people. He said, what if you thought of Web3 as a platform and created tools for better policy making? What if we had an open platform which would, be a way to, you'd be like, an open platform for so that anyone can suggest policies, and then we can track how good those policies go, so that then we had a framework and the best policymaker can run and you can see transparently by their work what policies they've suggested and how well those have performed, so that you have a tool and for first of all to help policymakers make better policy, and then following up on that to help the people elect better policymakers, so that rather than it just being a popularity contest. And you know what? It's probably a popularity contest, and it's a fundraising contest. Those who can raise the funds. That's what we elect, the best fundraisers in many, many ways. I mean, that's obviously not one-to-one, but money deeply influences the whole thing.
Riza, you said you wanted to share something regarding Philippine voting.
Just like what Danny was saying about doing that, because we already applied that in the Philippines.
Okay.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Voting on your phone?
Yes, we already did
That's
that.
right.
Because
He said, I'm sorry, Reese. And in the TED Talk, he had mentioned that Philippines was one of the countries that's actually implementing online voting.
So we implemented that because there are many overseas Filipino workers who want to vote
but they aren't physically
from where
present.
they are, and then they can do that. Another thing is that because most Filipinos nowadays are on the phone, and why not do that? So one part of the Philippines, actually called Baguio City, they implemented that, but one of the biggest problem, number one, is the bugs. All right, the bugs. What
does that mean?
Because if
COVID
we
bugs.
Virus
viruses and everything, because if we do that mobile voting, like digital voting. Number one, the transparency and mutability. So once it's already in the blockchain, it cannot be altered. So
Right.
everything is there. So that's good. The government of the Philippines actually like embraced that and claimed that, okay, let's do that. So we did that, the trial, and we did that in one area of the Philippines, and everything was good. But the problem is there are many risks. So like number one is the many people can actually create like they can duplicate it. So
that's what I was worried
one
about.
person can create like multiple votes. So that's one of the problems. They saw it like, oh, this person is already dead, like this person is already dead like 20 years ago, but how come? So those are what I call ghost voters. So we have ghost voters. And even though it's not online, there are still some ghost voters. The only way why we did that, because every year, to be honest, in the Philippines, there are hundreds of teachers dying from bombing. So mostly the election places, like we go, people go to schools, right? That's the place where they vote, and the teachers are volunteers doing that work on how to organize the voting, because of ballot, boxes, switching and everything. So in small areas in the Philippines, some politicians, they do bombing, so they just do that. So every year there are many people, teachers dying from that. So they implemented like, why not do it online, digital, for overseas Filipino workers, for very old people who cannot go there to the place to vote, to schools, and also to make sure that everything is in blockchain. But unfortunately, because of many risks, we stopped that. I don't know if they will still continue that for this coming election, but we already implemented that.
So when I'm hearing all these different perspectives, I see that there is the benefits.
Yeah.
Yay!
Both.
Now you get to vote from your house.
Mhm.
But then there's these negatives of, well,
Yes.
now there's a different way that someone can cheat. They
Yeah.
can find out if someone was dead and then put their name on the vote.
Mhm.
But in my mind, that's not even a problem, because if it's digital, now you know that it happened. It's on the blockchain.
Mhm.
There are so many problems people constantly talk about with voting, of like, well, the ballots were stuffed or this and that, and it's like, why aren't we going digital? Because that's physical. With physical, you have to be there to actually know what happens. I have to be in Ohio or in Oklahoma or
Mhm.
somewhere to know what happened to those ballots.
I think the one guy was mentioning that you can
There's no problem.
put inside the voting thing. It's like a one-time actionable thing that you two-factor authenticate before you push the vote button. And it literally, like, you open your phone or anything that we do for second factor, before you go to action button your vote, or as you're opening the portal or whatever you're using to vote, you open that, it scans your face, and it's real time, so it knows you're not a robot. It connects you. It has a connection because, of course, you'll put in it inside the portal. You'll put in your ID and a picture or a passport, something that you can, so they can verify who you are. And at the time of action, it sends you a two-factor authentication that actually will verify that you are not a robot, that you're the living person. And at that moment, with a hash graph to send that picture is authenticated, that's you on that moment at that time, setting the vote button. So there's good systems that are being put into place. Everything we bring up and anything we AI like that, these are the things that are going to be worked out. The system is going to happen. In my opinion, it will happen one way or another. At least as a trial of some kind. And we don't have to do it. It's not going to start with the president. My thought is it's going to start at the base level with your local municipalities, assemblymen, something like that. Maybe it'll move up to a mayorship to work out the bugs and to get the system to actually work and be trustworthy.
I mean, this is so relevant, though. They're like, with the problems with the teachers, they're getting literally killed because they're trying to hold a place where you can vote. You can't just do that digitally. You have a blockchain that can be able to verify things. It can be able to happen in real time. You can
It would
stay
be owned by the government, right? It would be owned by the gut. This is the thing. We need to make them do it. Not like, why can't we? How come we don't? Bro, we are in control. This is the whole point. If we get this done, it lets everyone know, the people, and you have an online voting system now. After they realize that the people have pushed for this, they are in control of the vote. They put people in office and take them out. You don't do a good job. This is a privilege. You're a public servant. If you don't do a good job, no big deal. Try again later. Maybe we'll vote you back in next time. Go do better and resubmit, cast a ballot again. But we should have the right, just like anybody does. If your supervisor, or your boss, or the owner of your company is not happy with your performance, you will get a talking to. I would imagine you would hopefully get a chance. Maybe improve, see the negatives or the holes in the wall, or things that need to be plugged and fixed, and then you can act on that. And of course, being in a transparent block or something, we can see those actions as they happen. You can fix the roads. Yeah, the crews are out there today. Matter of fact, Granite Construction started their thing today on that section. It'll be done by then. All this stuff is easily trackable, and we are, again, I'm excited because we are in control. We sit here like lemmings and lollipops, my favorite, and let our vote the party line. We might as well vote the party line if we don't even know who's in office right now. If you don't know who's in office, and you don't have to have it memorized, but we need to maybe have it in a note somewhere on our phone, get the document, get the sheet that says who it is and what it is, and have it in your phone so in case you find that, the roads need fixing again, or the gas went up too high, or whatever the case may be, that maybe you can start entertaining these threads through the constituents that start talking about these things that create action. These are the things that will create action when it gets put out there that it's not getting done. I'm excited about it. Honestly, I truly, truly am excited about something like this, and look forward to it.
And we all have the power, like you're saying.
We are the power, Malachi. You specifically, bro, you are the future. You got 70 years. I mean, you have a lifetime of growing up and working in this world to start now and be ahead of your peers as we talk about this and move these type of things forward.
I share your passion. I share your passion, Danny, with, about understanding who our elected officials and leaders are. And I think if you walk down the street and you ask most people, they don't know who is managing. Not all of them. Some of them might know, but not to the level that we should for the things that we need. And like you said, it is, and I'm going to use this word specifically, offensive to me to think that with all this technology that we have available, we're still pretending as, oh my God, this is so complicated. No, it's not. It's not complicated at all. I think that at this point, with all this technology, because everybody's marketing AI, take job, do this, everybody, right? When I get my water bill, my electric bill, whatever it is, there should be such detail in that bill that I should know if I need to call somebody and exactly who I need to call. Yeah. Push button simple to go, kick off if I need be, or say good job. Like it should be that simple because the data is there. I spoke to our water company because the meter was scratched out like a New York City subway, back in the day, like you couldn't see the numbers. And the guy was reading the meter and I was like, look, this thing is messed up. You can't see the numbers. He says, I could read it. And that was, man. Okay.
And you just said, okay, you say so.
I turned into my dad, like that Allstate commercial or whatever it is. Like I turned into my dad because my dad would be the person who's like, oh, you can read it, clearly knowing. He'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to go get a belt sander and some black lacquer. And I'm going to still can read it because it was so ridiculous what this guy was saying. But anyway, he's like, well, I could change it for you. I was like, yeah, do that. Ironically, when he did all that, our water bill miraculously went down. And when I'd called before, I said, well, I need a 6-month audit of our water bills. Well, you have to do that in writing, and you can only get like the last 60 days. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that sounds, but for me, again, and this is what we don't want to start happening to our citizens, because for me personally, and not necessarily I should be proud of this, but this is how I feel about it. When you tell me that I need to give you a written notice 30 days in advance to get a water bill that you've been billing me for, when I ask, how is my water bill exact? How is it exactly this many gallons? How's that even possible? It's impossible to me. That doesn't make any sort of logical sense. So when I question it, your retort is, well, you got to do it in writing. You see, for me, especially thinking the way I think with AI, now I'm going to write a letter every month, and I'm going to go talk to my neighbors. Let's write lots of letters. Let's bury the company in paperwork. And that sounds horrible, but that's what that type of behavior invites, because all I wanted was something that you could clearly give me. I could do it. You know, I could teach somebody else to do it, and they don't even have to be tech savvy. This is not a difficult problem. We're talking about building data centers that need cooling and, you know, running up all this, you know, electricity, but you can't give me my water bill. And you're so indignant about it that you want to talk ridiculous to me. That's not acceptable. That is unacceptable. It's offensive. And we have all this data. I don't think that, you know, to get back to politics, that we want people to have an informed decision. We're clearly talking about, oh, we want more people to vote. But how many of these people even know who their elected officials are? Like, why isn't there like a button on the blockchain? Because this is what I would like to see in blockchain. Say whatever you want as a politician. You know, CV, go nuts. Talk about how great you are. You know, evangelize yourself, whatever. But then you have the button on the blockchain that allows you to fact check all the stuff that you were saying, you know, and only the stuff that is universal across the board even gets counted. So that when you do go to vote, phone or otherwise, or whatever the case may be, with the facial recognition that we use all the time, everybody can know what it is they're actually voting for. So we don't just, like Daddy said, vote the party line.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when that happens, even all the money, that should be a factor. Like, I think if I recall the stats correctly, Michael Bloomberg spent like $100 million or some ridiculous sum to become mayor.
I mean, how about
like, are you mad?
In California and lost
on camera?
Bro, are you mad? Like, to me, that to me is a metric that needs to be factored in to everything.
How about that's $1 that needs to go back into the kitty to the state he's representing?
I'm going to jump in. I want to say hi to Web350.
Yes, I
hope you enjoyed Basecamp. Happy birthday, my friend. We celebrate your life. That's always a nice thing about a birthday. It gives us a chance to celebrate one another. Ted said, vote early, vote often. For those that have just tuned in, we're talking about what's in the best interest of us, the constituents, for the federal, state, and local governments. Not what's in the best interest of the government, not what is in the best interest of the politician, not what is in the best interest of the nonprofits or the associations or the lobbyists or the big pharma companies or the big environmental companies or those that are the big oil and gas companies that are fighting against environmentalists, not what is in their best interest. The question is, if we let's say for America, our next huge time of voting is going to really pop off in the next 8 months, and it will finish in the next 13 and a half months, early November, which will be a lot of governors, a lot of federal congressmen, congresswomen, a lot of senators federally, and a lot of state, everything.
Yes.
A lot of judges, a lot of city council members, a lot of board supervisors, a lot of everything across local, state, and federal. And the question that we've asked and we've bounced around today is as follows. If it's about what's best for the constituents, the people, what do we want to see enacted? And some of the things that have come across is let's vote on our phone. Everybody has a phone. We already do very advanced confirmations of our personhood on our phone, scanning our passports or driver's licenses, scanning our face, even moving our face around, even speaking. I mean, we do some crazy things on our phone to get access to a bank account or access to some sort of, certificate or thing. So let me share with all of you what's been marinating in my mind. And I'm going to share a few things that I hope all of you find inspiring, and then maybe we can chit chat about a couple of them. So one is this. Nigel said, Web 350, happy birthday. We appreciate you. We all feel the same way about you, our friend. So first thing, voting on our phones. Yes. I would personally love to see a system by which when you log in to vote on your phone, that there is information about each thing that you're voting for, both for and against. For instance, had we had the system I'm talking about for our last election, when you go to vote and there's Trump and Kamala Harris and other independent presidents and VPs, that there would be something that Trump's campaign puts forth and something that we could probably vet it based on the interaction, like social media. If you put hashtag don't vote for Trump, hashtag vote for Trump, whatever gets the most likes, that's basically the representative, something of that nature. But if there was a way that when you go to vote, there is a critical and a celebratory view of that person, and if that could be written and translated in every single language, if it could be video, fine. I think that would be wonderful. If people got compensated to vote, there might be a concern. I understand, but I don't want to talk about the concerns. I just want to talk about the potential benefit for the constituents, for us. If there was a way that you got compensated not to do the vote, but you got compensated to review the information about who you're voting for, that would be intriguing to me. So if you get compensated to vote, that's not as exciting as when you go to vote for a federal congressperson or senator. You're going to vote for them. And before you press vote, there's an option to read, watch something for and against them. And as long as you watch both and you take in the information that is critical and celebratory, by doing that, you get 5 USDC sent to your account or something of that nature.
I voted sticker, or you get something like that.
Yes, some sort of incentivizes education, just like what Web 350 just said. An incentivized education around voting would be pretty intriguing to me. Another thing that would be intriguing to me is if you, when you're done voting, if you choose to post your vote on social media with your explanation of why, and maybe that would be another thing where now people are, the constituents, us, we are holding ourselves to a level of transparency. You're not just privately voting for who you want to vote for. You're making a physical declaration, and across your social or socials, you're saying, this is what I just voted for. This is why. Now, obviously, if there was some sort of benefit for you to do that, that would be, like you get a whatever. So it could be money or it could be something else. I think the I voted sticker is probably not going to really do the trick for this. If we want to go from 52%,
they're already giving it
or
away.
62% voting engagement, and we want to get to 85, 90, 95% voter engagement and bring on a third of our nation into the voting process, phones will help. Compensating people for incentivized education will help. Encouraging people to share what they just voted for, and basically for them to choose transparency. So they're saying, okay, we want the ability to use our phones. We want the ability to be compensated for education, for educating ourselves on who it is that we want to, kind of go after. And
how about a cap on campaign funding? I think it's also a little bit unfair when someone can come in being sponsored by big oil or tobacco or something like that and be able to push $100 million campaign when, truly the guy, and it always happens this way, the underdog, the up and comer, the one who makes changes and who actually makes a difference, usually starts from a base level. They're not the most represented person. They're not the most lobbied. They're not the most the change is what I'm trying to get to. Usually a guy coming in and going to make a change has to start somewhere, and they're not afforded to have the advantages of a high campaign dollar sign to come in and support them that way. And so, that was just it hits me hard. Things hit me hard. I got to speak out on it like that. I think that there should be some sort of a mandate to where 10 figures. When you get to $1 billion, that's too much. You can't be $1 billion campaign guy when you're running for governor.
Yeah.
Right.
And all that money just going to big corporations, Google, for ad revenue. It's not the way it should be.
Go ahead, Nigel.
I'm going to take a little bit different take here. I don't necessarily think you should cap the contribution. Contribute whatever you want. The backside of that is what should be capped. Donate $1 billion, $1 trillion if you want, but you can never get any benefit anyway on the backside of that. It's illegal. Then we'll start to see some change. Again, say whatever you want, but if it but when you put it on the blockchain and you can see that it's not what you say it is, think about it as like a forensic psychology type thing that they do during child custody. When you do your little interview and you write down all the stuff on the paper, and you either tell the truth or you make up stories or you embellish or you do your Steven Spielberg type thing, and then the guy sits down with you, and it's all on the up and up, and he asks questions and they don't align with the paperwork, then you get dinged. And that's how I feel like that will start to drive the behavior. And what you said, Ian, about the incentivizing the payments to vote, I don't know about the payments in that way, but I feel like an exchange of value that I feel could have even farther reaching benefits is this. How you have volunteering for kids, like for young adults when they're going into college and everything? Well, now you go and you educate, you make sure your parents go and understand all these things. You go and do it. You become part of the process with your parents. Twofold. Yeah. You get to get closer to your parents. You get to learn about more civic engagement. You get to do it together as a family. All good. That bumps you up the notch. And it should be something that it's on par with someone donating a building to Harvard. Something like that, so that you start to level the playing field of actual money and sweat equity, what this country in large part was built on. Because to me, work is work. It's energy. You put it in. Some people can pay for stuff. Good for them. That's great. But some people work really hard at things that they don't necessarily even get thank you for. And that is unfortunate, and I think it's something that can also change.
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be like a money compensation, but it'd be kind of cool if you made it so that if you do all the different things, you can get like, what's the next number president going to be? 47, 48? 48 total dollars. Like, that's an example. Or maybe it's like you get a specialized NFT that says Malachi. Like, that's just an idea. And of course, it doesn't have to be something like that, but it's just this idea of it doesn't have to
It's easy to imagine. So it's easy to imagine doing if the government does a partnership with Coinbase or with Tether, and if they have some sort, let's just say Coinbase, because to me this feels most realistic. If the government does a partnership with Coinbase, and Coinbase says, "Hey, we want to onboard the world to our decentralized platform." Their decentralized platform is the Base app. Coinbase is the centralized platform. And they say, here's all the things that we'll do. We will pay for all of we won't make money off fees. And any fees that are not covered by us can be covered by the federal government. And if it means that we come together and we basically compensate people $10, $100, even $1,000, the reality is we gave like $5,000 amounts to Americans during the pandemic. So certainly we can do that to try to engage people into the process of incentivized education in order for them to vote with knowledge and not ignorance. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to come up with the best plan, but the point is where we want to go with all this, right? Where we want to go is an opportunity for Americans to use their phones on a federal, state, and local level. We want people to not just vote because it's easy. We want them to vote based on knowledge and not ignorance. Therefore, the idea of incentivized education is intriguing. We like the idea of people being able to potentially benefit. Now, I think I voted NFT sticker is probably not a strong indicator of benefit. I think $100 or something that feels tangible, right? Maybe the federal government partners with some sort of national food chain. Maybe, if you vote, you get a federal voucher to be able to go eat at one of a dozen restaurants that are American restaurants. Maybe you get to go and, whatever it is, some sort of benefit, right? Go ahead, Nigel.
I think if you had the choice of picking, because I think the NFT, not that, I know that's a question, that's a polarizing word, but my point is this. Imagine if you're doing this thing every year, you're educating your parents, you're going through the process, you're doing these things, and then, you're doing it since you're a young child, 7, 6, whatever the number is. And you turn 35 and you've been doing it for 30 years and you run for president. I think that would be powerful. Very powerful. It would change what that is. It would be, to me, it would be very similar to what Ted does by going and playing basketball in the prisons. When you have a long, confirmed, blockchain verified track record of doing something that's beyond reproach, I think that becomes a powerful metric that lets people know that, look, you've done that one thing. It's not everything, but it's a specific thing that you can tangibly look to and say, aha, that makes sense. I don't have to question this particular aspect of this person's, character or what they're about or what it is they've been doing. And I think that's super helpful in helping people make an informed decision. So yeah, you could take the $100 to the grocery or whatever the case may be. Sure. But I think the other thing may, in some instances, be even more valuable in the long run, depending on what your particular aspirations may be.
Yeah.
What is actually because everything that you guys shared about how to improve, how to, like
incentivize.
Yes. What is, well, I don't have the right yet to vote here in America, right? But I was just thinking that based from what Ted shared, that 55% or 65% of Americans only are voting and the rest are not. So I think we have to start from there. Like, what is actually the root of why there are many Americans are less motivated in voting? So from there, maybe that is actually what we have to focus. From there, we have to find out what is actually less motivating for them, and that's what we are going, because everything that you guys are sharing, like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, everything is good for those people who are motivated to vote. But the biggest question here, what is the main reason? I haven't voted here yet. I don't know what's actually going on here. But if I would share what's happening in the Philippines, why there are also many Filipinos are less motivated to vote, it's because they it's the trust. They're no longer trust politicians, and they thinking that I will not spend a lot of my time in voting, although we always have this campaign, like, one vote counts. Like, every single vote, it actually counts. Even my daughter Julia, she's always like motivating us, like, mom, and me and John, motivating us, like, mom, you really have to vote because every vote counts. Like, one vote, it can change a lot. It can help to improve our country. So I'm just surprised that it's not only in the Philippines, but also here in America, that there are many Americans are not voting. So I think we have to focus there first. What's actually the cause why there are many Americans are less motivated in voting? and from there, that's the time
Then
that
we
we
can build
can,
everything else.
yes, because we don't know yet. I mean, I don't know. So maybe you guys can answer that question if you have any ideas. What is
Nigel, if
the
you
main
put it
reason?
simply, what are the ways or the reasons why people don't feel motivated to vote,
Yeah.
especially here in America?
This is going to sound, however, we don't value our citizenship, not the way that we should.
Definitely
Like
not.
I'm ashamed to say that I didn't know some information before about my local politicians and everything that goes on, but I'm correcting that actively. And that's not the reason I'm saying it, because I'm just as guilty as anybody else for not knowing. Even the people that I've voted for in the past, I didn't know every nuance and detail. And granted, AI has only, really been publicly available for the last couple of years, but certainly now, like, to me, at this point, the ability to know more is there. Like, I feel like I'm very comfortable saying this statement. If you are not looking at who you're voting for, like truly looking, not the propaganda and the lawn signs or whatever the case may be, then you're just not that interested, because it's not for lack of capability. And I feel like if you're taking things from the government, and I don't mean, like service, anything, Social Security, whatever the case may be, and you're not voting, I think that should come up too, because you cannot trust, like you trust, if you trust the people that give you your Social Security, you trust them to give you, whether it is, subsidized housing or whatever the case may be, you don't like you have to trust them on some level. So I don't know that it's that. I just don't think there's enough interest, because if someone said, hey, you haven't voted like never, but you've been receiving, Section 8 housing for the last 3 years, you could vote or lose your housing. I'm not saying that should be what it is, but I think if you framed it in those terms, all of a sudden you're going to get real interested.
It's already happening.
The interest is going to go through the roof. And then compound that with the ability of AI to go in and look at these things and really understand what's going on. I think that when you know better, you do better. If you understood all the things that were available to you as a citizen, I think you would treat it with a lot more care and reverence and things of that nature.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm finding.
It already happened in the Philippines before, like those people who they can see the record. If they can see your name, you haven't voted for the last 6 years or 3 years, let's say, whether it's local or nation wide voting. If they didn't see that you voted, you will not get any benefits from the Philippine government. Like, for example, during the COVID, there were like food and that they're distributing to every household, and each member of the household who are already like legally can vote, like 18 years old above, can have like a package of food and different items like alcohol or whatever it is. So if they cannot see your name in the system that you voted, then you cannot have that.
Wow,
Another thing is the
one and done.
house loans. You cannot do housing loans from the government if they cannot see your system that you voted. So you have no choice. If you really want to do housing loans, you have to do that from the bank, which is really high percentage. Unlike the local government agencies, you can get it really, really cheap. And even though you're just earning like say $10 per day, you can still afford to do the house loan. But if they can see your name in the system that you didn't vote, then you cannot have that. So until now, we're still implementing that. There are many Filipinos were forced to vote because they know that the benefit of that in a long run, like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. Another thing is their SSN. They cannot get their contributions if they can see that you didn't vote. Like every year or every month from your salary, you're deducted from your Social Security. But because you didn't vote, or they cannot see that you voted for the last years, then your contribution will just go to waste. It will just go to the government, and you cannot even benefit from that. Yeah,
That's interesting. That is so interesting. It almost makes me think it's like right in between incentivizing and discriminating in a way. It's like you're caught in the middle. If you don't do this, then you're not counted for. If your name's not in a system, you don't get the benefit for it. But that's the whole point we're trying to do. They need to know who's in the system so the vote can be counted. So it's catch-22 for a minute. But those who want to be part of it and have a vote counted, you just need to be somehow you need to be identified.
Mm-hmm. It's true. That's why most voters in the Philippines are actually.
How much I was heard. Sorry about that.
It was until 5 seconds ago. You only froze up for one moment.
Yeah.
A terrible Wi-Fi today. I have no reason why. No bars are there. I have no idea what's going on. Nigel, is your storm affecting my Wi-Fi? Because it's
There's a storm. Oh my God.
It is.
It's all this AI. It's all this AI using up all the damn power. That's what it is.
Dude, throw me
Guys,
some.
I saw that. Oh my gosh, it's crazy how much power AI uses. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was that much. Every time you put in a query, this was a video I think posted by like MIT. I saw it on YouTube. Every time you put in a query for just a prompt, that's like putting on the microwave for about 8 seconds. And once you get to making a video, it's like over an hour that the microwave is on. Over an hour. Do you know how much energy that is? On my grandparents' boat, they have a microwave in there. You can't turn on the microwave when you're out on the water because it'll turn off all the power. That's how much voltage it uses.
It's crazy.
So like that just kind of gives a little comprehensibility of how much power it really uses. It's
crazy.
So
Using the microwave on the water. You're on DC voltage out there, my man. Yeah. That's different. That's ancient out there. You're gonna pop the circuits. You be using that microwave trying to make that popcorn out on the water, huh?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think that actually did happen to us. We popped on circuits.
That whole boating life is something interesting. You know, you talk about price gouging. You don't ever want to run out of gas on the water.
Yeah.
Because then they see you coming. They're like, oh, look at this. Somebody forgot to put gas in. All right, I can come out. Be like $80 a gallon. Hope you're ready.
Yeah,
it's whatever you say. It's whatever you say. $100 a gallon. I'll take it. Come on. I ain't getting in unless I get that gas.
And then there's the fees. You know, you started talking spicy. Now it's 150. Now you know.
Don't you dare talk spicy to me.
That's how that works. You know?
I love
but
it.
To the point of like incentivizing things, imagine this. You know, I was just thinking about this. Okay, so I don't necessarily know taking away people's services for voting, but how about this? I think the idea, if we look at it, is we want citizen engagement. We want to know what people think. So once, you know, the idea of, you know, voting on your phone, once there's no friction or real obstacles to you voting and everybody getting to vote, I think a way to incentivize everyone to vote would be this. You could vote, you know, do the little videos and push the button on your phone. That's pretty simple. Or we could wait till you file your taxes. And everything that you didn't vote for, you could write us a little essay. You could use your AI, you know, you should write it, but I suspect that you're going to opt for just the voting, because then you got to actually go into details. You got to put it in and, you know, submit. And that to me will get the result that you're looking for. I think it'll incentivize and it'll also give everyone a voice, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. I think that things that accomplish the objective, which is sometimes what we miss, you know, like we end up arguing and bickering and going back and forth, but we lose sight of the objective. You know, the spirited debate isn't it. Me getting at you, you getting at me. That's not it. It's coming to a consensus of something that actually is more productive and beneficial, being born out of those, you know, conversations. It may be a little bit more challenging. So if the goal is to get people to participate, then do the things that help them to participate and not necessarily be punitive if you don't. Just make it different in how they do it. We can find out what you're thinking by you voting, or you can, you know, you can use the other way if you want to be more.
I imagine this like this big ambitious vision of starting the November federal election, that you can vote on your phone. There's an incentive for education before pressing vote. Maybe there's an incentive for sharing publicly what you voted. And maybe there's an incentive for encouraging other people to jump on and register to vote. Now, these are three different potential things that if you incentivize people one way or another. Now, this could be a coffee gift certificate, right? So the federal government could work out a deal with Pete's and Starbucks and all the other Dunkin' Donuts and all the other major chains and say, hey, we're going to give every American a digital card for $5, $10, $100, and it can be used in any of your chains. And if people come use it, I mean, I don't know it's going to be that easy, but the point is an incentive of some sort. USDC, USDT seems like a real easy win because then you can basically get the crypto companies incentivized to onboard people to their decentralized platform. Nevertheless, regardless what the incentive is, regardless of how it gets there, if there was an incentive for using your phone to learn before pressing vote, that would be wonderful. If there was an incentive for sharing publicly how you voted so that you as a constituent, you as a citizen, are also choosing to be transparent because we're asking the government to give us greater transparency, greater authenticity, greater, vulnerability, which is not in their best interest. So why not we reciprocate? And how many people quietly voted for Trump because they didn't want their liberal friends to think that they were a bad guy and they didn't say nothing? Or how many people quietly voted for Democrats because their family or their friends or their community expect them to hold to some other consensus of values and they don't say because they don't want to kind of like deal with the heat. But it feels today like you can basically say what you want more than you ever have been able to before, whether you are on one side of the aisle or the other. So, and then finally, an incentive to register people to vote for the first time. If the data is correct, and let's call it 57% of potential voters are registered to vote, that is a 30, that's a massive amount, right? It's actually more. It's 43% options. So if you look at 43% of people, that's over 100 million humans in America that are adults that are legally allowed to vote. They're not participating in the voting process, probably because the incentive is not enough. They don't think of voting matters. They don't think their vote makes a difference. They don't know what the hell to vote, and they'd rather not vote than vote ignorantly, and there's no incentive for them to learn. They don't know who their friends are voting for or voting against because nobody will ever talk about it. But if people started having incentives to share online, all of a sudden they'd be like, oh my God, my best friend's that, and my pastor that, and my auntie this, and my nephew that. And if there was a reason where people that maybe would just like to have a valid way of being able to make additional income, and they don't want to join some sleazy multi-level marketing thing, and they don't want to try to trade crypto and start with a lot of money and end with no money, and they don't want to sell their body. They're not interested in the oldest profession. These are the things that people have options for today. And they go, well, what if there's an incentive for me to register people? What if every time I register somebody, it's a compounding thing. And the better I am at registering people, the more that it compounds in my favor. These are the types of ideas that I think would be good for citizens. I think it would be in our best interest as citizens to see the federal government work with some of the top crypto companies to work out the incentive program, with some of the top AI companies to work out the education so that there's something for people to be incentivized to learn, and to work it out with both sides of the aisle to say, hey, we understand that the RNC and the DNC may not see this as a 100% win, but happy citizens are better than angry citizens. And it seems the time has come and we must do this. So let's work together to make it as painless as possible for everyone involved. Go ahead, Nigel.
To add to what you're saying, I feel like the transparency about voting, I think one thing that could help in that regard, I don't know, you guys tell me, is not having it be so focused on just the candidate. Make it a granular thing, what things you voted for. Like, because I think we're too quick to shove everybody into one camp. We're all different beings. We all have our unique promises of value. I'll die on that hill. And we keep trying to, like, I don't think, you vote because you have certain policies that you like that are being, supported by a particular candidate, but then you get, oh, you're a Trump supporter, or you're an Obama supporter, or you're a Kamala supporter. Like, you're that, or you're everything that person is. And who, like, the closest people to us in the world, we don't agree with everything they say. We don't have the same mind. Like, so why would you think, so like, that whole thing is too broad a brush. So I feel like when you make it more granular, you open up the opportunity for us to have meaningful dialogue with context. You take some of the ambiguity out, and it takes some of the stigma that might, exist with some of that, and some of the fear that goes along with that. Not everything, but that's certainly a part of it. And then I feel like you should also incentivize, more, I mean, this is happening already, but more younger people to get involved. Because I know down here, I mean, obviously because of the demographic, you go to the vote polling places, and it's a lot of seniors, and that's just what it is. And granted, people say they have the time or whatever the case may be, but to your point about incentivizing and making it, like, to me, even a side hustle for some people. There's some people who won't vote because they're too busy surviving. I don't think we put enough emphasis on that. I'm trying to feed children and pay rent and, deal with $100,000 and I'm still below the poverty line. I'm not really thinking about those things in some cases. And granted, maybe I should, but it's not a priority. I'm trying to eat. I'm trying to make sure I have a roof over my head, my kids with clothes on my back. Like, that's a real thing. It may not be a thing for somebody who's like, 9 figures, but it's a thing for some people. So that might be even a bigger way to incentivize some other things. That time of year becomes a whole little side hustle. They can, put themselves in a better spot and maybe have some additional free time resources to focus on their voting, and, while doing it. So I think all those things make sense. And I think they need to be as creative as possible. And I don't think, even saying, the coming together, I feel it should be a lot more, dare I say, confrontational. I dare you not to come together is more like it. I dare you, because I'm putting it on the blockchain so everybody can see it. Chin up, chest out. I don't want to participate. Great. That's what we need to see. Election coming up, we'll take that into consideration. I don't think, like, some of these things I think are too important for our elected officials who are in great positions in life compared to some other people, at least financially. They make, not all of them, because Danny and I were looking and we pointed out, like, there's some, in California, some of the same positions, are 6 figures in one area, 29,000 in another. Same exact position.
We had one that was 137,000 in California.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Florida didn't make anything.
Yeah, and some of them are like 100,000 and maybe 29,000. And then another key factor that we were looking at, that we saw, is some of these positions. I mean, it's different positions, but like, school board, things like that, uncontested. Like, that means there's no competition. It's just, you're good.
Here's
rubber
keep your
stamp.
job. Yep.
There's not even a party line. I'm the only one here, so I guess I won. That's unfortunate, because, how are we going to do better? There's nobody even looking, So I think those are things to keep in mind. And the challenge, I feel, is to always be looking at, why not? Why can't this be done? Don't tell me we don't have the resources or we don't have the technology to do it, because we absolutely do. What, like, from 2 years ago to now, for 5 years ago to now, the amount that we can do, and we're constantly marketing and evangelizing it. You can do the work of 30 people with AI. So telling me you can't do it sounds ridiculous.
Right.
Like I said, it's offensive. So I think the do better is built in, and it's just a matter of making sure that, we hold people accountable, and even our own elected officials. don't you dare come talking to me about something that you're not up to date on. It's disrespectful. You know, you if you're going to sit in a committee on TV and talk about AI, know what you're talking about.
Know what you're talking about.
You're partnered with some of these companies. Make them educate you, because to me, and that's a simple conversation. If they want, I'm happy to consult. Here's how it would go. It's real quick. Low cost. Here's what you do. You could either educate me on your product, or I'm gonna just say whatever I want, and that's not gonna go good for you. Yeah, so how about that? Let's see what the response is to that, because it's ridiculous. We have all this technology. You're sitting up there saying things that are just delusional about products that you're come on. We could do better. You got a $500,000 education. Granted, you might be, a little on in age, and I'm not getting at seniors. I'm a big senior advocate. But the fact is, there are plenty of seniors using AI and using it effectively.
Right.
So stop it. We have to do better. It's an imperative. So I think that the stuff that you're bringing up is really making me even think even harder about what my own behavior has been, and really encouraging me to want to do better and to go do some of these things, even at a smaller scale, and hopefully, incentivize others to follow suit, or leadership by example kind of thing. So good on you,
Nigel. I like it when Nigel throws some call to action.
Yeah, I'm just piggybacking off of what your dad said. I think that those were good, solid, doable, achievable things.
They are doable. That's the most important thing. We could be here talking about, oh, this would be awesome. Oh, we should do this. But if it's not doable, it's just us yapping about a cool future.
I mean, I legitimately think that David Sachs and his team in the federal government, combined with one of the primary crypto companies like a Coinbase, with Brian Armstrong already having a trusted relationship with the administration, and a primary AI company with a good relationship, let's say it's XAI, looked like at Charlie Kirk's funeral, Trump and Elon were holding hands again. So
holding hands?
I'm just kidding. So the ability for the federal government to work with somebody like a Coinbase on the incentive program, and on the potential for wallets, if the incentive is, cash based, and maybe having the voting system built by them along with other partners, and then having somebody like an X.AI or Grok's AI providing the education, because XAI has access to Twitter in real time. Therefore, it'd be easy for there to be a critique and a celebration of this position or this person to vote for, and for it to be basically for Grok to basically watch, like, oh, what is the strongest critique that is not a conspiracy theory? What's the strongest celebration that's not just a worship song? And how do they present this forward in terms of the education way? I think like that really makes sense. I think the federal government can work with a couple private companies and maybe have a third or fourth company involved for the sake of transparency, authenticity, and making sure that everything is done kind of in the open with glass walls and not behind closed doors. I'll end my little thing with this. A lot of people have hated Mark Zuckerberg for a long time. And even when Mark started to speak the words of decentralization, when he went on to Joe Rogan a couple years ago, and he sounded like he was a decentralized crypto dude. That's what he sounded like. He kept pushing open source. He kept pushing decentralization. He seemed to be questioning the way that he was participating in causing problems with our news feeds. And even when that happened, people are just demonizing him, and that's fine. I get it. There's no reason not to. And even more recently, as he's written public open letters and saying the Biden administration forced us to do certain things. We apologize. We shouldn't have done it. We'll never do it again. And everybody's like, oh, he's just sucking up to Trump's administration. That's fine. But I'll tell you this. When I was at Facebook's headquarters about a decade ago, and I went there to have dinner with one of the employees, and I was with some other friends, and he took over Sun Microsystems, and he still left Sun Microsystems branding on the walls. Remember, this is 10 years ago. This is back before all the hatred, back before Trump got elected the first time. This is 2014-15, down in Menlo Park, Palo Alto area. And he left all the Sun Microsystems stuff on the 11 buildings. It's like 5 buildings on this side and 6 buildings on this side. And it's like a college campus, what it feels like. Every building had restaurants and had fun places like woodworking, metalworking, painting, sculpture, things of that nature. And Sun Microsystems stuff is everywhere because Mark supposedly said to his staff, I want you to all to realize it doesn't matter how big our company is, we can fail. If Sun can fail, we can definitely fail. And if we don't keep in mind that companies, just because they're mighty at one point, doesn't mean they're going to stay that way. I thought that was kind of cool. But the thing that really, really struck me was this, everybody. And this is important because it is very easy for us to throw stones and criticize everybody and not try to see the best in the situation. And as I talk about this process being done with glass walls and not behind closed doors, I want to mention the story. So I'm walking down the park, and I'm passing buildings on my left, passing buildings on my right. We're going to have dinner at one of the buildings in the very end. And right in the middle is a glass conference room. And a piece of paper is taped on both sides of the glass conference room that everybody can see. That all 4 walls of the conference room are glass. All 4 walls. There's a couch, a table, and a TV. And on the glass walls are 2 pieces of paper with, like, you know, when paper is taped and then the paper kind of folds in because it was not laminated. It's just been sitting there too long in the sun. And on the paper, it said, please don't take pictures of the animals. Meaning, like, don't walk by the conference room and take pictures of us, okay? That is Mark Zuckerberg's conference room, when I'm told. That is where he did the Instagram acquisition. That's where he tried to acquire Snapchat and failed. That's where he acquired WhatsApp. Now, is that true? I don't know. I wasn't there, but that's what I was told. And all of a sudden, I look past the conference room, and I can't believe it. Mark Zuckerberg is sitting right there amongst 100 of his employees, and he's just with headphones on, typing on a computer. I don't know if he's answering emails or if he's coding something. I don't know what he's doing. But I thought to myself, man, that is weird. His conference room is glass walls, and he's out there like anybody can get to him. That is so weird. And I said to the person that works there, I'm like, what is Zuck doing out there in the middle of everybody? He's like, dude, nobody would ever go talk to him unless they need to talk to him. You would never interrupt Mark. Like, he doesn't have to worry about his employees distracting him. Like, he's Mark. You're going to leave him alone. They're like, we have a pretty flat organization. Pretty much everybody here is like 4 or 5 people away from direct reporting to Mark. Okay, so we go have dinner. We play some ping pong. We do a business meeting. 2.5 hours later, 3 hours later, I'm walking back to my car. Everybody's gone. It's dark outside, except for Mark. Mark is still there at the same spot with his headphones on, typing away at his computer. And I think to myself, you know, people can say all kinds of bad things about this dude, but this guy is accessible. He is visible. He is right in the middle of it all. And the success clearly has not caused him to hide behind closed doors, because even his conference room is 4 glass walls. And if Zuckerberg, who his business card says, I'm CEO, bitch. That's what his business card at least used to say when he was a kid. That was one of the things that Sean Parker encouraged him to put on his card, because Sean, from his Napster experience and other things, had a experience that all the big money guys are going to try to come in and basically take your job from you. So Mark's card says, I'm CEO, bitch. Mark shows up to big tech conferences in his hoodie, soaking wet from sweating because he hasn't been media trained. And Mark is one of the most powerful, one of the wealthiest, one of the strongest amount of authority in the world. Millions of people on his platform, and he still works in the middle of everybody, and he still has 4 glass walls on his conference room. And if that dude can do that, then there is no doubt that American citizens can make a request, maybe even make a demand, that our government and the politicians that we put into power can operate with more authenticity, more transparency than they currently do. That's my personal final thought. Any response from the four of you before we wrap things up for the day?
Great talk today.
Yeah, I enjoyed
100%.
it. Very good.
This one actually feels like there's substance in there where I'm
Very much so.
feeling good, talking about the voting, being part of it, actually looking into more of it, being proactive on it, knowing who my elected people are right here, starting to even understand, all these propositions. What's that all about? Number what, this, that, number 53B, 407, Proposition 50, one side leans one way, one side. If I'm gonna go vote, I feel like a person in swim trunks out in the tundra.
Right.
Not very well prepared, man. Just not feeling that well prepared. So good talk today, and I hope other people got something from it. Also, it's a call to action to be more integrated into at least your local level. At least your local level, because our vote does make a decision.
I think there's a lot to find there, if you look. And as much as, we as humans like to complain, it seems, sometimes the things we're complaining about.
I do not complain.
I never complain. How dare you say
that about me? Can you believe him?
Don't ever say that again. This guy.
Label it however you want, but some and substance. So this is good. But you see, this is the spirited debate that I am so proud of that we're doing here, because again, that could have been taken all sorts of sideways. But the fact is, when we hold ourselves accountable, it's our best teaching tool, in demonstrating what is possible. When we get together in this room and we talk about not, small, light topics, but something that is challenging, that we have struggled with, we have not been our best selves, and we absolutely can do better. But I think that's the optimism that I see, because everything we've talked about here today in some form is doable. We can absolutely move this needle forward, and it's up to us. It's ours to lose, at this point. So super, super happy about this, this conversation in general, especially coming off of, everything that's happened. And I feel good to be less of a Johnny come lately in the arena of knowing more to do better.
Yeah. I know Riza's real hungry to say something.
Pastrami sandwich.
That's Dad's hyper sarcastic way of saying, Riza, I would really like for you to speak.
No, I asked her. She said everything she had to say. Go ahead, Malachi. Close us down. Take us home, son.
We've talked about voting today, something that is so vitally important to the lives that we get to live as, especially American citizens, but really everywhere. Riza talked a lot today about the Philippines, and it's amazing that they actually did something that we're talking about today. We don't have to think about, oh, maybe in the future it's possible, in the far, far, far future, maybe we can actually vote on our phones. That'd be cool. Sure. I guess I'll try that, but it's not going to happen because this, and that. No, literally just simply know that it is not true. It happened in the Philippines. They let people vote on their phones if they were living far away. That is obviously possible. And with the technology is there, the people are there. We are here. Don't let the cultural problem of, well, they aren't on my side. Don't let that problem become something that infects everywhere else. We are the people. Literally, it says that in the Constitution, we the people, we are the ones who decide what's going to happen. Why? Because we are the people. We live in this country. It's not the politicians who get to choose something, because if we decide it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
And with that, thank you, Internet land out there in the World Wide Web, for joining us once again. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time, Wednesday, September 24th, noon Pacific. That's 3 p.m. for Nigel over there on the East Coast.
Thank you, Internet.
We're loving you right now.